Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because tonight's story is gonna chill you to the bone. Grab a blanket, dim the lights, and let's dive into a tale about a mountaineer named Lucas, lost in a cursed forest where a creepy cabin hides secrets you'll wish you never knew. Ready? Here we go. The trail through Blackthorn Forest was supposed to be my big escape. I'd been climbing mountains since I was a kid, chasing the rush of standing on a peak, the world spread out below like a painting. But lately, that rush wasn't enough to drown out the guilt. 2 years ago, my best friend, Nate, died on a climb in the Rockies. A loose rope, a bad call my call. I've been running from that memory ever since, and Blackthorn, a rugged stretch of wilderness in Vermont, was my latest distraction. Locals in the nearby town of Ashwick warned me about it. Old-timers at the diner, sipping coffee, whispered about hikers vanishing, about a witch deep in the woods. I laughed it off. Superstitions don't scare me. Rocks, wind, and gravity are real stories, just noise. I started the hike at dawn, my pack heavy with gear, my boots crunching on frost-covered leaves. The plan was simple: summit Raven's Peak, camp overnight, and head back. The forest was dense, pines towering so high they blocked the sun, leaving the trail in a constant twilight. By noon, a fog rolled in, thick as soup, turning the path into a maze. I checked my map, but the landmarks didn't match. My phone? No signal, just a blank screen mocking me. I kept going, trusting my instincts, until I hit a narrow ledge overlooking a ravine. The fog hid the drop, but I knew it was steep. One wrong step, and I'd be done. I edged along, my fingers gripping the rock, when a gust of wind hit me. My foot slipped, and I fell, tumbling down a slope, branches snapping under my weight. Pain shot through my ankle as I hit the ground, my pack slamming into my back. I lay there, catching my breath, the fog swallowing everything. My ankle throbbed, swollen but not broken, just sprained bad enough to slow me down. I tried to stand, wincing, and checked my gear. Map was useless now, compass spinning like it was drunk. The forest was silent, too silent. No birds, no wind, just my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Night was coming fast, the temperature dropping with it. I limped through the trees, hoping for a clearing, a trail, anything. My flashlight beam barely cut through the fog, and every shadow looked like it was moving, twisting just out of sight. I told myself it was exhaustion, but deep down, I felt it something watching me. The guilt crept in, Nate's voice in my head. You should have checked the rope, Lucas. I shook it off, focusing on each painful step, when a light flickered through the trees. A warm, golden glow, steady and real. A cabin. Relief hit me like a wave, but it was mixed with something else: unease. A cabin this deep in Blackthorn. No roads, no trails leading to it. I pushed the thought away. I needed shelter, maybe a phone, someone to help. I limped closer, the glow coming from 2 windows, oil lamps flickering inside. The cabin was old, its wooden walls weathered, moss creeping up the sides like it was part of the forest. The air felt heavier here, like it was pressing down on me, and a faint rustling came from the trees. Like whispers I couldn't quite hear. I climbed the creaky porch steps, my ankles screaming, and knocked on the door. The sound echoed, too loud in the silence. For a moment, nothing happened, and I wondered if I'd imagined the light. Then the door creaked open, revealing an old man, maybe in his 60s, gaunt as a scarecrow. with deep-set eyes that seemed to glow in the lamplight. His face was all sharp angles, his grey hair wild, and he wore a tattered flannel shirt. He didn't say a word, just stared at me, his gaze cutting through me like he could see my thoughts. "Hey, I'm lost," I said, my voice shakier than I wanted. "Twisted my ankle out there. Can I come in? Maybe stay the night? I'd owe you big time." He didn't answer, didn't even blink, just stepped aside, holding the door open. I hesitated, my gut telling me to run, but the cold and my throbbing ankle made the decision for me. I stepped inside, the door shutting behind me with a thud that felt final. The cabin smelled of damp wood and something sour, like old herbs. The main room was cluttered rickety furniture, shelves packed with jars of dried plants, and walls covered in photos. Not family portraits or vacation snaps, but creepy ones, blurry figures standing in the forest, their faces scratched out, some with eyes that seemed to follow me. I tried not to stare, but they made my skin crawl. The old man shuffled to a stove, stirring a pot of stew that smelled oddly sweet. I dropped my pack by a sagging couch, trying to break the silence. "Nice place you got here. You live out here." Alone, no response. He just kept stirring, his back to me. I tried again. "Those photos, you take them yourself?" Nothing. His silence was louder than the forest's, and it set my nerves on edge. He turned, pointing to the couch with a bony finger, then set a bowl of stew on a table nearby. His eyes locked onto mine for a second, and I swear they weren't right to dark, like they didn't reflect the light. I forced a smile, thanking him, but he ignored me, disappearing through a door at the back of the room. I sat on the couch, my ankle throbbing, my pack closed like a lifeline. The stew sat untouched. Something about it felt wrong, like eating. It would tie me to this place. I pulled out my pocket knife, keeping it hidden, and scanned the room. The photos were worse. Up close one showed a figure that looked like the old man, standing over a pile of dirt, a shovel in hand. My heart started pounding, the locals' warnings echoing in my head. "Stay out of Blackthorn. The witch takes what she wants." I told myself it was just a story, that I was safe here, but the cabin didn't feel safe. It felt alive, like it was. Watching me dot, the oil lamps flickered, casting shadows that danced across the walls. And the whispers I'd heard in the forest came back, faint but clear, coming from nowhere and everywhere. "Stay awake." I froze, my breath catching, my knife gripped tight. The old man was still in the back room, but the air was heavier now, the cabin's silence pressing against me like a weight. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew one thing for sure: wasn't sleeping tonight. The whispers faded, but their echo clung to my mind like damp fog. "Stay awake." I sat on the sagging couch, my pocket knife gripped tight, the cabin's oil lamps casting jittery shadows across the walls. My ankle throbbed, a dull pulse that kept me grounded, but everything else felt wrong. The air was too thick, the silence too heavy, like the house was holding its breath. The old man hadn't come back from the back room, but I could feel his presence, like eyes boring into me through the walls. Those photos' blurry figures, scratched out faces stared down, and I swore one had shifted, the figure's hand now closer to the frame's edge. I tried to focus, to shake off the fear creeping up my spine. I was a climber, used to staring, down cliffs and storms. This was just a creepy cabin, an old guy with bad manners. But Nate's voice was back in my head, sharp and accusing. "You didn't check the rope, Lucas. You let me fall." I squeezed my eyes shut, pushing the memory away, but it left a hollow ache in my chest. I needed to do something, anything, to keep my mind off the whispers and the guilt. I stood, wincing as my ankle protested, and limped to the nearest shelf. It was packed with junk jars of dried herbs, chipped mugs, and books so old their spines were crumbling. The titles made my stomach twist. The Binding of Shadows, Rituals of the Wood, Blood of the Forest. I pulled one down, its leather cover cold under my fingers. The pages were brittle, marked with symbols that looked like twisted knots or eyes, and handwritten notes in the margins. The keeper hungers, the forest demands. I snapped it shut, my heart racing. This wasn't just some hermit's library. This was something darker. I glanced at the back room's door, still closed, and moved to the photos. Up close, they were even worse. One showed a group of people in the forest, their faces scratched out, standing in a circle around a pile of stones. Another had a figure that looked like the old man, his eyes too big, too black, holding a shovel over what could have been a grave. My breath caught as I noticed something newer photo of a young woman, her eyes scratched out, her dress torn, standing in front of this cabin. The frame was dusty, but the image felt alive, like she was watching me back. The locals' warnings flooded back. The witch takes what she wants. I'd laughed it off in Ashwick, but now, surrounded by these photos and books, it didn't seem so funny. Was the old man the witch? Or was he serving something else, something tied to this forest? I needed answers, but the cabin's silence was suffocating, broken only by the faint crackle of the lamps and my own uneven breathing. I limped back to the couch, my knife still in hand, and tried to think. The stew was still on the table, cold. Now, its sweet smell turning my stomach. I wasn't touching it, no way. I'd rather starve than eat something from this place. I checked my pack water, a protein bar, a flashlight, my climbing rope, enough to get through the night, maybe, if I could just stay calm. But calm was hard to come by when every creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps, every flicker of the lamps like a signal. Then I heard it again, a whisper, soft and sharp, like a blade against stone. Don't trust him. It came from the floor, or maybe the walls, I couldn't tell. I froze, my knife trembling in my hand, and scanned the room. Nothing. Just the photos, the books, the shadows. I told myself it was my imagination, the forest messing with my head, but the whisper came again. Clearer, he's not what he seems. My eyes darted to the back room's door, still shut, but I swore I saw it move, just an inch. I needed to move, to do something before I lost it. I limped across the room, my ankles screaming, and stopped at a rug by the stove. It was crooked, like it had been moved recently. I pulled it back, revealing a trapdoor, its wood scarred with scratches, like claws had scraped it. A rusty padlock held it shut, but the scratches weren't from the outside, they were from below, like something had tried to get out. My pulse hammered in my throat. The whispers were louder now, coming from the trapdoor, a chorus of voices. Look, see. I knelt, my knife ready, and touched the padlock. It was ice cold, biting my fingers. I could pick it, maybe, but what was down there? The books, the photos, the old man's silence, they all pointed to something bad, something I wasn't. Sure, I wanted to face, but I couldn't just sit here, waiting for him to come back, waiting for the whispers to drive me crazy. I glanced at the back room's door again, still closed, and started working the lock. my knife's tip slipping into the keyhole. It was slow, my hands shaking, but I felt the mechanism give, just a little. The door to the back room creaked open. I dropped the knife, my heart lurching, and scrambled to cover the trapdoor with the rug. The old man stood in the doorway, his eyes locked on me. His face unreadable, but wrong, his mouth too tight, his gaze too sharp. He didn't say a word, just pointed to the couch, slow and deliberate, like I was a kid caught sneaking cookies. My mouth went dry, but I nodded, limping back to the couch, my knife hidden in my sleeve. He watched me the whole way, his eyes never blinking, and then turned back to the stove, stirring that damn stew again. I sat, my heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. The whispers were gone, but the trapdoor loomed in my mind, its scratches burned into my memory. I didn't know what was down there, but I knew it was connected to the photos, the books, maybe the witch the locals feared. The old man kept his back to me, but I felt his attention, like a weight pressing down. I gripped my knife tighter, pretending to settle in, but my eyes stayed on him. Then he did something that made my blood run cold. He stopped, stirring, turned, and looked right at me, his face splitting into a glint wide, too many teeth, like something wearing his skin. It lasted a second, maybe less, but it was enough to make my stomach churn. He turned back to the stove, like nothing happened, but I knew what I saw. This wasn't just a creepy old guy. This was something else. Something tied to this cabin, this forest. The whispers came back, louder, a chant that filled the room. He sees you. I forced myself to stay still, to breathe, to act like I was dozing off. My knife was ready, my pack close, but my ankle was a liability, and the trapdoor was calling me, its secrets pulling me in. The old man shuffled to the back room, his footsteps slow, deliberate, and I heard a faint click, like a key turning in a lock. The whispers surged, a warning, a command, stay awake. I didn't move, didn't dare, but my mind was racing. The trapdoor, the books, the photos, they were pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve, but couldn't ignore. Nate's voice was there again, softer now. You owe me, Lucas. Don't fail this time. I clenched my jaw, guilt and fear twisting together, and made a decision. I wasn't sleeping tonight, and I wasn't waiting for the old man to make his move. I had to know what was under that trapdoor, what this cabin was hiding, even if it meant facing whatever lived in the shadows of Blackthorn Forest. The whispers were a drumbeat in my head. He sees you as I sat on the couch, my knife hidden in my sleeve, pretending to sleep. The old man's footsteps had faded into the back room, the click of a key still ringing in my ears. The cabin was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. The air felt alive, buzzing with something I couldn't name, like the forest itself was creeping inside. The trapdoor under the rug was all I could think about, its scratches clawing at my mind. Those books, those photos, the granite was all connected, and whatever was down there was the key. My ankle throbbed, my heart pounded, but Nate's voice was louder than ever. Don't fail this time, Lucas. I wasn't sure if I was doing this for him, for me, or just to survive the night, but I had to move. I waited, counting my breaths, until the cabin's silence felt safe enough. The oil lamps flickered, casting shadows that twisted like fingers across the walls. I slid off the couch, wincing as my ankle took my weight, and crept to the rug. My knife was steady in my hand, its blade catching the dim light as I pulled the rug back. The trapdoor stared up at me, its padlock glinting. The scratches deeper than I'd thought, like something desperate had torn at the wood. The whispers came again, soft but urgent, from below. Look, see. My gut screamed to stop, to run, but I was done running. I'd run from Nate's death, from the guilt, and it hadn't helped. Whatever was in this cabin, I was facing it. I knelt, my knife's tip slipping into the padlock's keyhole. My hands shook, the metal scraping loud in the silence. I glanced at the back room's door, half expecting the old man to burst out, but it stayed shut. The lock was old, rusted, and after a few agonizing seconds, it gave with a soft click. I froze, my breath caught, waiting for a sound. A sign I'd been caught. Nothing, just the cabin's hum, low and steady, like a heartbeat. I lifted the trapdoor, slow, its hinges creaking, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. Cold air rushed up, smelling of damp stone and something sour, like decay. The whispers surged, a chorus now. Come, no. I grabbed my flashlight. From my pack, its beam cutting through the black, but it barely reached the bottom. The stairs were uneven, carved into rock, slick with moss. My ankle wouldn't like it, but I didn't have a choice. I took a step, then another. The trapdoor opened behind me, my knife in one hand, flashlight in the other. The whispers were louder down here, echoing off the walls, and the air felt heavy, pressing against my chest. I reached the bottom, my beam landing on a tunnel stone walls, low ceiling, lined with flickering candles that shouldn't have been lit. Symbols like the ones in the books were carved into the stone, glowing faintly like they were alive. I moved forward, my flashlight shaking, the tunnel stretching deeper than the cabin's size should allow. The whispers were everywhere, chanting words I couldn't understand, but they felt like a warning. Then I saw it, a table, draped in black. Cloth covered with bones, dried herbs, and a photo. The same woman from upstairs, her eyes scratched out, her dress torn, labeled the keeper of Blackthorn. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just a basement. This was a shrine, a place for something dark, something the old man served. The locals. Stories about a witch didn't seem so crazy now. I stepped closer, my beam catching a leather journal on the table. I flipped it open, my hands trembling. The pages were filled with tight, frantic handwriting, dates going back decades. The keeper demands offerings. The forest must be fed. Names followed hikers, climbers, people who'd vanished in Blackthorn. One entry, dated last year, read, Michael Tate, lost on Raven's Peak. Taken at midnight. My throat went dry. These weren't accidents. They were sacrifices. I snapped a photo with my phone, my fingers clumsy, knowing I needed proof if I got out of here. Footsteps echoed above, heavy and slow. My heart lurched. The old man. I doused my flashlight, crouching behind the table, my knife ready. The trapdoor creaked, and candlelight spilled down the stairs, his shadow stretching long and wrong, like it wasn't human. He descended, humming a low, guttural tune, carrying a sack that sagged in his hands, something inside it twitching faintly. My blood ran cold. Was it alive? He stopped at the shrine, setting the sack down, and knelt, muttering words that made the air hum, the symbols on the walls pulsing brighter. The whispers screamed in my head, run, now. I edged back, my ankle throbbing, trying not to breathe. The old man's head snapped up, his eyes locking on the darkness where I hid. I froze, my knife trembling, but he didn't move, just stared, his face twisting into that too wide grin from before. Then he turned back to the shrine, pulling a bone-carved talisman from his pocket, its surface etched with the same symbols. I didn't wait to see what came next. I crept toward the stairs, slow, silent, my heart pounding so loud I was sure he'd hear it. The whispers urged me on. Go. Hurry. I reached the stairs, climbing as fast as my ankle allowed, the trapdoors, light guiding me. I pulled myself up, shutting it quietly, and slid the rug back, my hands shaking. The cabin was still, but the hum was louder, vibrating through the floor, and the photos on the walls seemed to watch me, their scratched-out faces almost moving. I limped to the couch, collapsing, my knife still out, my mind racing. That journal, those names, the shrine, it was real. The old man wasn't just a hermit. He was part of something evil, something tied to the forest, to this keeper. The back room's door creaked. I stiffened, pretending to sleep, my knife hidden under my sleeve. The old man stepped out, his eyes glinting in the lamplight, and stood over me, too close, his breath rasping like dry leaves. I kept my eyes half closed, my body still, but my pulse was a hammer in my chest. He didn't move, just watched, his grin gone but his presence heavy, like he knew I'd been. Downstairs. Then he turned, slow, and pointed to the couch, his finger lingering in the air. He shuffled to the stove, stirring that stew again, but his eyes flicked back to me, sharp and knowing. I didn't dare move, not yet. The trapdoor was locked in my mind, its secrets burning me up. Nate's voice was back, softer but clear. You can't run forever, Lucas. The guilt hit hard, mixing with the fear, the need to know what this place was, what the old man was doing. The whispers were quiet now, but I felt them, waiting, watching. The cabin's hum grew louder, the lamps flickering faster, and I knew time was running out. I couldn't stay here, playing dead, hoping the old man wouldn't make his move. Had to act, to face whatever was in this forest, even if it meant going back down those stairs. The old man's shadow lingered in my mind, his chew-knowing eyes burning through me as I sat on the couch, my knife a cold weight in my hand. The cabin's hum was a pulse now, vibrating through the floor, syncing with my heartbeat. The trapdoor under the rug called to me, its secret stows names in the journal, the shrine to the keeper pulling me like a current. I couldn't shake Nate's voice, soft but sharp. You can't run forever. Lucas, guilt and fear twisted together, pushing me to act. I'd faced cliffs, storms, the kind of cold that kills, but this was different. This was a darkness I didn't understand, and it was waiting for me downstairs. I waited until the old man shuffled back to his room, the door creaking shut, the cabin falling into that heavy silence again. My ankle ached, a dull fire with every step, but I couldn't stay still. The whispers were back, faint but clear, seeping from the trapdoor. Come back, see. I pulled the rug aside, my flashlight beam trembling as I lifted the trapdoor. The cold air hit me again, sour and damp, like something rotting. The stairs loomed below, their moss-slick steps disappearing into the dark. I gripped my knife, my pack slung over one shoulder, and started down. Each step a fight against the pain in my ankle and the fear in my gut. The basement tunnel was just as I'd left its stone walls carved with glowing symbols. Candles flickering, like they'd never burn out. The whispers were louder here, a chorus weaving through the air. You're close. No. My flashlight beam danced across the walls, catching those symbols, not eyes, things that made my skin crawl. The tunnel stretched too far, like the cabin was bigger underground. a maze that didn't follow the rules of the world above. I moved fast, my ankles screaming, until I reached the shrine again. The black draped table, bones scattered across it, the photo of the woman labeled the Keeper of Blackthorn, her scratched out eyes staring into nothing. I set my flashlight down, its beam steady on the journal I'd found last time. I flipped through it, my hands shaking, looking for more. The pages were worse than I remembered: sketches of the forest, trees with faces, and lists of dates, names, and words like offered and accepted. One entry, dated a month ago, read, "Clara Holt, hiker, lost near Raven's Peak. The Keeper is pleased." My stomach churned. These weren't just missing people. They were prey, hunted by whatever the old man served. I snapped another photo. My phone's flashed bright in the dimness, and tucked the journal into my pack. I needed proof, something to show the world if I got out of here. A sound stopped me: cold footsteps, heavy and deliberate, coming down the stairs. The whispers turned sharp. He's here. I killed my flashlight, ducking behind the shrine, my knife ready, my breath shallow. The candlelight grew brighter, and the old man appeared, his shadow stretching across the tunnel, too long, too thin. He carried a sack, sagging and heavy, something inside it twitching, like it was fighting too. "Get out." My heart pounded so loud I was sure he'd hear it. He moved to the shrine, humming that same guttural tune, and set the sack down, its contents thumping softly against the stone floor. He knelt, pulling out the bone-carved talisman, its symbols, glowing faintly, matching the walls. His muttering grew louder, words I didn't know but felt like they were crawling under my skin. The air thickened, the candles flaring, and the symbols pulsed, casting shadows that moved on their own, twisting into shapes, faces, things with too many eyes. The whispers screamed, "Run, run," but I couldn't, not yet. My ankle was a liability, and the old man was too close, his back to me, but his presence filling the tunnel like a storm. Then he opened the sack. I couldn't see what was inside, but the smell hit Miriton, sweet, like the stew upstairs. Something shifted, a faint whimper, and my blood ran cold. Was it alive, human? I didn't want to know, but I couldn't look away. He lifted a bundle from the sack, wrapped in cloth, and placed it on the shrine, next to the bones. The whispers surged. A wail now. No, no. The candles flared brighter, the symbols blazing, and the air felt like it was pressing me down, crushing me. The old man's voice rose, a chant that made the walls shake, and the shadows grew. Reaching for the bundle, I had to move. I edged back, slow, my knife trembling, my ankle threatening to give out. The tunnel was dark behind me, but I knew the stairs were close. I bumped a candle, its flame hissing, and the old man's head snapped up, his eyes locking on the darkness where I hid. His face twisted, not into that grin, but something worse: blank, empty, like he wasn't human anymore. He stood, the talisman glowing in his hand, and took a step toward me, his shadow swallowing the light. I bolted, my ankles screaming, my flashlight forgotten. The stairs were a blur, my hands clawing at the walls. The whispers a deafening roar. Go, go. I reached the trapdoor, scrambling through, and slammed it shut, my hands fumbling to slide the rug back. The cabin was dark, the lamps flickering like they were dying, and the hum was a growl now, shaking the floor. I limped to the couch, collapsing, my knife out, my chest heaving. The journal in my pack felt heavy, its names Clara, Michael, so. many others burning in my mind. This wasn't just a cabin. It was a trap, a place where the forest fed. The back room's door creaked open. My heart stopped. The old man stepped out, his eyes glinting, his talisman still in his hand, glowing faintly. He didn't look at me, not directly, but his presence was a weight, a promise of something coming. He moved to the stove, stirring the stew, but his movements were wrong, too slow, too deliberate, like he was waiting. I gripped my knife, pretending to rest, but my mind was screaming. The trapdoor, the shrine, the sack, they were pieces of a nightmare I was stuck in. And the old man knew I'd seen too much. Nate's voice hit me again, a whisper in my head. You owe me, Lucas, get out. The guilt was a knife in my chest, but it gave me focus. I couldn't stay here, couldn't let the old man or whatever he said. The journal was proof, but proof meant nothing if I didn't make it out. The cabin's hum grew louder, the photos on the walls seeming to shift, their scratched-out faces watching, waiting. The whispers were back, faint but clear, from the trapdoor. He's coming. I tightened my grip on the knife, my eyes on the old man. He turned, his face half lit by the lamp, and for a second, his eyes weren't eyes, just black voids, endless, pulling me in. He pointed to the couch, slow, his finger trembling, and then shuffled to the back room, the talisman still glowing. The door shut, but the hum didn't stop. The cabin didn't sleep. I knew what I had to do. The trapdoor wasn't done with me, and neither was the forest. I had to go back down, find a way to stop this, or I'd never leave Blackthorn alive. The old man's void-like eyes burned in my memory, his talisman's glow a warning that time was slipping away. I sat on the couch, my knife a lifeline, the cabin's hum a roar now, shaking the walls like it was alive. The journal in my pack felt like a bomb, its names, Clara, Michael, all those lost hikers screaming for me to do something. Nate's voice was louder than ever, cutting through the fog of fear. Get out, Lucas. You owe me. Guilt and panic churned in my gut, but I knew I couldn't stay. The trapdoor, the shrine, that twitching sax, they were pieces of a nightmare I had to escape. The whispers surged from the floor, sharp and urgent. Run, now. I grabbed my pack, my ankle screaming as I stood and limped to the cabin's door. The old man was in the back room, but I felt him, his presence like a shadow over my shoulder. The photos on the walls seemed to move, their scratched-out faces twisting, watching me go. I turned the doorknob, slow, praying it wouldn't creak, and slipped outside. The night air hit me, cold and thick, the fog so dense I could barely see. 10 feet ahead, the forest was alive, trees rustling like they were whispering to each other, their branches swaying without wind. My flashlight beam trembled, catching glimpses of roots that seemed to shift, curling toward me. I ran, or tried to, my ankle forcing a clumsy stagger. The cabin's light faded behind me, but the hum followed, vibrating through the ground. Syncing with the whispers, you can't leave. The path, if there ever was, one twisted, leading me in circles. Trees loomed closer, their bark carved with those same symbols from the basement, glowing faintly like eyes in the dark. I pushed through, branches snagging my pack, roots tripping. Me, the forest fighting to keep me. My breath came in gasps, my heart pounding, Nate's voice driving me. Don't stop, Lucas. A shape moved in the Foga figure, tall and gaunt, its eyes black voids. The old man, or something wearing his face, its grin too wide, too wrong. I stumbled back, my knife out, but it vanished into the mist, only to reappear closer, its steps silent but heavy, shaking the ground. I turned and ran, my ankle burning. The whispers a chorus now. He's coming, she wants you. She the keeper, the woman in the photo, the witch of Blackthorn. The forest wasn't just alive, was hers. I spotted a gate, rusted iron, half buried in vines, at the edge of a clearing. Hope flared, sharp and desperate. Maybe it led out, away from this nightmare. I fumbled in my pack, finding the rusted key I'd taken from the shrine. My hands shook, the old man's figure flickering in the fog, closer now, his talisman glowing. Like a dying star. The key fit, the lock grinding open, and I pushed through, expecting freedom. But the gate opened to more forest, darker, denser, the air so heavy it felt like drowning. The whispers laughed. You're hers. I kept moving, my flashlight flickering, the forest reshaping around me. Paths vanished, trees leaned in, their branches like fingers brushing my face. My guilt hit hard, Nate's death replaying his scream. The snap of the rope, my fault. Was this my punishment? The old man's figure appeared again, closer, his grin stretching wider, his eyes swallowing the light. I swung my knife, wild, hitting nothing but air, and ran, my ankle giving out with every step. The whispers chanted, "Stay, stay." A clearing opened ahead. A circle of stones, their surfaces carved with symbols that pulsed red, like a heartbeat. The air here was thick, buzzing, and the whispers were deafening, chanting a name, Elara, Elara. The keeper, I froze, my flashlight dying, the stones glowing brighter. The old man stepped into the clearing, his talisman blazing, his face melting skin sagging, eyes sinking, becoming something else, something not human. He raised a hand, the forest responding, roots curling toward me, branches snapping like whips. The whispers screamed, "She sees you." I backed away, my pack catching on a root, tearing free. I didn't care. I had the journal, the photos on my phone, proof of this hell. I turned to run, but the forest fought harder, paths looping back to the clearing. The cabin's light flickering in the distance, calling me back. My ankle buckled, and I fell, my knife skidding across the dirt. The old man was close now, his shadow swallowing me, his voice a rasp. "She wants you." I scrambled up, grabbing my knife, and sprinted. The forest a maze of claws and eyes, the whispers a wail, "You can't escape." I don't know how long I ran, my lungs burning, my vision blurring. The trees seemed to scream, their branches lashing out, but I kept going, Nate's voice pushing me. "You're almost there." The fog thickened, the hum deafening, and I felt her Lara. The keeper her presence like a weight in my chest, her whispers weaving through the others. "Stay with me." I wanted to give up, to lie down and let the forest take me, but Nate's face flashed in my mind, his eyes pleading, and I forced myself forward. A new sound cut through the chaos of faint trickle, like water. A stream. Hope surged, sharp and raw streams lead somewhere, out of the forest, away from her. I followed it, my ankle afire, my knife clutched tight. The old man's figure flickered in the fog, always behind me, his talisman's glow pulsing like a warning. The trees thinned, the hum fading, but the whispers stayed. Ilara's voice clearer now. "You'll come back." I didn't look back, didn't dare, just ran, the stream's sound growing louder, the fog parting just enough to show its glint ahead. I stumbled into the clearing. The stream shallow but real, its water cold against my boots. The forest was quieter here, the symbols on the trees dimmer, but the old man was still there, his shadow stretching across the ground, his grin a slash in the dark. I waded into the stream, my ankle numb, my knife ready, but the fog closed in, the whispers surging, "You're mine." My legs gave out, my vision swimming, and I collapsed on the bank, the journal still in my pack, the key in my pocket, the forest's weight crushing me. The old man's figure loomed, his talisman blazing, and Ilara's voice was a scream, "Stay." I tried to move, to fight, but my body was done. Nate's voice was faint now, a whisper, "You tried, Lucas." The fog swallowed everything, the hum a lullaby, and I felt myself slipping, the forest pulling me under. The last thing I saw was the old man's face, not grinning anymore, but sad, almost human, his eyes reflecting something ancient, something hungry. Then the darkness took me, the streams, trickle fading, the whispers the only sound left, "You're hers." Darkness swallowed me, the streams cold seeping into my bones, Ilara's whisper "You're," mine ringing in my ears. I was done, my body broken, my ankle a useless weight, the old man's sad, hungry eyes the last thing I saw. But Nate's voice cut through, faint but stubborn, "Get up, Lucas, you owe me." It wasn't just guilt, now it was a fire, a need to fight, to not let this forest, this witch, win. I wasn't ready to die, not here, not like the names in that journal. My eyes fluttered open, the fog thick, the streams trickle a lifeline. The old man's figure was gone, but the whispers were still there. Ilara's voice weaving through them, "Stay with me." I dragged myself up, my ankle screaming, my knife clutched tight. The forest was quiet, too quiet, the trees looming like sentinels, their carved symbols dim but watching. My pack was still on, the journal and key inside, proof of this nightmare. The stream glittered faintly, a path out, but the fog shifted, the trees leaning closer, like they were trying to block me. I limped forward, each step a battle, my flashlight gone, my phone's battery dead. The hum from the cabin was distant now, but the forest felt alive, its roots twitching underfoot, branches brushing my face like fingers. A sound stopped me, a low guttural hum, like the old man's chant. I turned, my heart pounding, and saw him, or it, in the fog. Tall, gaunt, his talisman glowing red, his face half melted, eyes black voids. He didn't move, just stared, but the forest responded, roots curling toward me, the whispers surging. "You can't leave." I backed away, my knife ready, but the ground shook, a branch snapping above me, narrowly missing my head. This wasn't just a chase. The forest was hers, and she was done playing. I spotted a tall pine, its branches low enough to climb. My climbing instincts kicked in, pain or no pain. I tucked my knife in my belt, grabbed my rope from my pack, and hauled myself up, my ankle afire with every move. The bark was rough, steady, a piece of the world that hadn't turned against me yet. I climbed higher, the old man's figure below, his talisman pulsing, his hum louder, the trees around me, swaying like they were angry. From the branches, I saw the forest shift paths vanishing, the cabin's light flickering in the distance, a heartbeat in the fog. The stream was close, but the forest was a maze, looping me back to her. The whispers grew, not just now, but others, voices of the lost. Clara, Michael, the journal's names, trapped here, feeding her. They spoke, faint but clear. She was Elora, healer, betrayed, burned for her gifts, bound to blackthorn. My stomach twisted. The witch wasn't just a story, she was real, executed centuries ago, her spirit tied to this forest, hungry for souls to keep her alive. The old man was her servant, leering hikers like me to feed her. The guilt hit hard. Nate's death, my fault, made me feel like I deserved this, but I pushed it down. I had to survive, for him, for them. The old man moved below, his hum a growl, the roots climbing the tree, twisting like snakes. I couldn't stay. I looped my rope around a branch, securing it with a carabiner, and slid down, my ankle buckling as I hit the ground. The stream was close, its sound louder, but the old man was faster, his figure flickering through the fog, always closer. I limped toward a clearing, spotting something glinting in the dirt, a rusted bear trap, left by some hunter. Hope flared. I could use it, by time. I knelt, my hands shaking, and pried it open, covering it with leaves, my knife ready as bait. The old man appeared, his talisman blazing, his face fully gone, now just a skull-like mask, eyes glowing like embers. He stepped forward, slow, his hum shaking the ground, the whispers screaming, "He sees you." I backed away, luring him, my ankle throbbing, my heart a hammer. He reached the trap, his foot hovering, and I held my breath. The metal snapped shut, clamping his leg, his scream tearing through the forest. Not human, not anymore. A sound that made my ears ring. The trees shook, branches lashing out, the fog thickening like it was angry. I ran, the stream's sound guiding me, the old man's scream fading, but his presence still there, like a shadow in my mind. The forest fought harder, roots snagging. My boots, branches clawing my arms, the whispers a wail, "You'll stay." Ilara's voice was clearer, softer, almost sad. "Be mine, Lucas." I wanted to give in, to let the guilt and pain pull me under, but Nate's face flashed his laugh, his trust in me, and I kept going, my knife cutting through vines, my lungs burning. The stream was close, its water a promise, but the forest was relentless, paths twisting. The cabin's light pulsing behind me, calling me back. A branch whipped across my face, drawing blood, and I stumbled, my ankle giving out. The old man was free, his figure in the fog, limping but fast, his talisman a beacon, his scream now a laugh, high and wrong. I crawled, my knife lost, my pack dragging, the journal still inside. The stream was yards away, its water glinting through the fog, but the forest closed in, trees bending, roots rising like walls. Ilara's voice was a song now, pulling me. "Rest with me." My vision blurred, my body heavy, but I forced myself up, wading into the stream. The cold shocking me awake. The old man reached the bank, his talisman blazing, his face a nightmare skin peeling, eyes endless, mouth a gaping hole. He didn't cross the water, just stood, his hum vibrating through me, the whispers a roar, "You're mine." I staggered downstream, my ankle numb, my hands clutching the journal, the key in my pocket a weight. The fog parted, the trees thinning, the hum fading. But Ilara's voice stayed, a whisper in my ear, "You'll come back." I didn't look back, didn't stop, the stream my only guide. The forest's grip loosening but never gone. I collapsed on the bank, my body done, my vision fading. The old man was gone, the whispers faint, but Ilara's presence lingered, a chill in my bones. Nate's voice was there, soft, You're almost there, Lucas. I clung to it, to the journal, to the hope of getting out, of telling the world what Blackthorn was. The stream's trickle was all I heard, the fog a blanket, and I felt myself slipping. The forest, still watching, waiting. The last thing I felt was the key in my pocket, glowing faintly, like it was alive, like it was hers. The stream's cold clung to me, Ilara's whisperreel come back fading into the fog as my body gave out. I lay on the bank, the journal heavy in my pack, the rusted key burning in my pocket, its faint glow like a pulse. Nate's voice was a lifeline, soft but steady. You're almost there. Lucas, I wanted to believe him, to hold on to the hope that I'd escaped Blackthorn. But the forest's weight was still there, pressing down, watching. My vision blurred, the streams trickled the only sound, and I slipped under, the darkness pulling me like a tide. The last thing I felt was the key, alive, tied to her dot. A jolt woke me voices, real ones, not whispers. Over here, he's alive. Rough hands pulled me up, my ankle a dull ache, my body battered. Sunlight cut through the fog, weak but real, and I squinted at two men. Grizzled and weathered, their faces tight with worry. Trappers, judging by their gearnets knives, a rifle slung over one shoulder. They knelt beside me, checking my pulse, their words a blur. Found him by the stream. Looks rough. Blackthorn got another one. My pack was still on, the journal safe, but the key's glow was gone, just cold metal now. They carried me to a truck, the forest thinning as we moved, the trees less menacing in the daylight. My head was a fog of pain and fear. Ilara's voice a faint echo. You're mine. I gripped the journal, its weight grounding me, proof I hadn't imagined it. The trappers drove to Ashwick, the town I'd passed through before the hike, and dropped me at a small clinic. A nurse patched me up sprained ankle, cuts, dehydration, but her eyes lingered on me, like she knew where I'd been. You're lucky, she said, her voice low. Most don't come back from Blackthorn. I didn't feel lucky. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, its battery dead, but the photos still there. Blurry shots of the journal, the shrine. The cabin, the trappers sat with me, their names Hank and Amos, gruff but kind. I told them everything, the words spilling out. The cabin, the old man, the trap door, the shrine. Ilara. I showed them the journal, its pages of names and rituals. And the key, its rust, flaking but solid. Hank's face darkened, his voice a whisper. The witch of Blackthorn. We've heard the stories. That cabin, it's never in the same place twice. Amos nodded, his eyes on the key. Folks say she was a healer, centuries back. Burned for witchcraft, cursed the forest with her last breath. Takes hikers, climbers, anyone who strays too far. He paused, his gaze heavy. You're the first I've seen come out in years. I wanted to believe it was over, that the stream had broken her hold, but the key felt wrong, like it was listening. The journals, names Clara, Michael, so many others burned in my mind. I'd escaped, but they hadn't. Nate hadn't. The clinic let me go after a few hours. My ankle wrapped, my pack lighter but heavier with the journal's truth. Hank offered to drive me to a motel, but I needed to talk, to make sense of it. We sat at the diner, the same one where I'd laughed off the locals' warnings. The waitress, an older woman with tired eyes, listened as I told the story again, her hands trembling as she poured coffee. That cabin's a trap, she said. Always has been. You're lucky you didn't eat the stew. My stomach twisted, remembering its sweet, rotten smell. I showed them the photos. The blurry image of the cabin, The old man's face a smudge, like the forest had erased him. The waitress crossed herself, muttering about curses. Hank leaned in, his voice low. You got proof, kid, but proof don't mean much out here. The forest, it protects her. I didn't know what to do with that, with the journal, with the key. I wanted to burn them, to forget Blackthorn, but Nate's voice was there, quiet but firm. Tell them. Lucas, I owed him that, owed Clara. Michael, all of them. I spent the night at the motel, my ankle propped up, the journal on the table. Sleep didn't come. Every creak was the old man's footsteps, every shadow Ilara's face. The key sat in my pocket, cold but heavy, like it was waiting. I checked my phone, the photo's still there, but one had changed the woman's photo, her scratched out eyes. Now clear, staring right at me. I dropped the phone, my heart racing, and shoved it in my pack. The whispers were gone, but I felt her, a chill in the air, a weight in my chest. She wasn't done with me. The next morning, I caught a bus to Boston. The forest fading behind me, but its shadow clung tight. My apartment felt too small, too bright, like it belonged to someone else. I locked the journal in a drawer, the key with it, but I couldn't shake the feeling they were alive, tied to her. I didn't climb anymore, didn't even look at my gear. The mountains had been my escape, my way to outrun Nate's death, but Blackthorn had taken that from me. I got a job at a hardware store, something safe, something normal, but normal didn't fit anymore. The guilt was still there, sharper now, mixed with fear that she'd find me. I told a friend about it, a guy who'd climbed with me and Nate. He listened, his face pale, and said I should burn the journal, move on. But I couldn't. Those names deserved better. I sent the photos to a local paper, anonymously, with a note about Blackthorn, the cabin, the missing hikers. It didn't make the news, but I heard rumors. Later search parties went in, found nothing, no cabin, no shrine. The forest had swallowed it all, like it always did. Some nights, I felt her closer, a cold spot in the room, a faint whisper of my name. I'd checked the drawer, the journal and key still there. The keys rust flaking, but its weight heavier, like it was growing. I didn't sleep much, didn't dream, but when I did, it was the forest trees shifting. Ilara's face clear now, pale and sad, her eyes pleading, then angry. She'd reach for me, her voice a promise. You'll come back. I'd wake up gasping, my hands shaking, the city lights outside no match for Blackthorn's darkness. I tried to move on, to be the guy who laughed at ghost stories, who climbed mountains without fear. But Blackthorn changed me. The journal, the key, the names, they were a weight I couldn't drop, a debt I couldn't pay. Nate's voice was quieter now, but it was still there, a reminder. You survived, Lucas. Don't waste it. I didn't know what that meant, not yet, but I knew one thing: I'd never go back to Blackthorn, never set foot in those woods again. But deep down, I wasn't sure the forest was done with me, or if Ilara would ever let me go. The city was supposed to be my refuge, its noise and lights a shield against Blackthorn's darkness. But 6 months after crawling out of that forest, I was still a mess. My Boston apartment felt like a cage, too small for the shadows that followed me. The journal and key sat locked in a drawer, but they might as well have been screaming, their weight heavier every day. I'd quit climbing, traded mountains for a hardware store job, scanning nails and paint cans like it could erase what happened. It didn't. Nate's voice was quieter now, but Ilara's wasn't. Her whisper, "You'll come back," crept into my dreams. my quiet moments, a promise I couldn't shake. I tried therapy, spilling my story to a guy in a sweater who nodded too much. Trauma, he called it, blaming exhaustion, dehydration, my guilt over Nate's death. Your mind built a narrative to cope, he said, like Blackthorn was just a bad trip. I showed him the journal, its pages of names and rituals, the photos on my phone, blurry but real, the cabin, the shrine, Ilara's scratched out eyes. He didn't flinch, just scribbled notes, suggested pills. I didn't take them. Pills wouldn't help with the cold spots in my room, the faint hum I heard at night, like the cabin's pulse had followed me home. I couldn't let it go. The names in the journal, Clara, Michael, dozens murders, better than a draw. I started digging, late nights on my laptop, searching for Blackthorn's history. Old Vermont records, buried in digital archives, told me about Ilara. She was real, a healer in the 1700s, tending to ashwicks, sick with herbs and chants. The townsfolk turned on her, called her a witch, burned her at the stake when crops failed and kids got sick. Her last words, the record said, cursed the forest. Blackthorn will take what you owe. The cabin, the shrine, the old man they were. Her legacy, a trap to feed her spirit, keeping her alive through the lost. The more I read, the worse it got. Hikers had vanished in Blackthorn for centuries, their names matching the journals. Clara Holt, a grad student, gone last year. Michael Tate, a climber like me, 2 years back. No bodies, no trace, just stories of a cabin that moved, a forest that swallowed. I found a forum, a corner of the internet where locals swapped tales. One post from an Ashwick hunter stuck with me. The cabin's her heart. Burn it, and she's free. Stay, and you're hers. I wanted to burn it, to end her. But the thought of going back made my hands shake. I wasn't that guy anymore. I tried to destroy the evidence, to move on. I took the journal to my sink, lit a match, but the pages wouldn't catch. The paper cold under the flame. The key was worse. I threw it in a dumpster, drove away, but the next morning it was on my table, its rust flaking but solid, glowing. Faintly when I touched it. My heart raced, Ilira's whisper clear. You're mine. I locked it back in the drawer, double-checked the bolt, but the hum was there, low and steady, like Blackthorn was in the walls. The photos on my phone changed. Sometimes Ilara's eyes clearer, her face sadder, angrier, watching me through the screen. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, the city's hum no match for the forest's. Shadows moved in my room, not quite human, not quite hers. I'd check the drawer, the journal and key still there, the key heavier, like it was growing. Dreams came, vivid and cruel blackthorns. Trees shifting, the cabin's light pulsing, Ilara standing in the clearing, her face pale, her eyes endless. She'd reach for me, her voice soft but sharp. You left them, Lucas. You left me. I'd wake, gasping, my chest tight, the guilt over Nate mixing with the names in the journal. A debt I couldn't pay. I stopped talking about it. My friend, the climber who knew Nate, called me crazy, said I needed a vacation, not a ghost hunt. My co-workers at the store noticed my shakes, my jumpiness, but I brushed it off, said I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't, not really. Every creak was the old man's footsteps, every cold breeze her breath. I bought a lockbox, heavier than the drawer, and buried the journal and key inside, but it didn't help. The hum was louder some nights, the whispers clearer, Ilara's voice weaving through, Blackthorn waits. I thought about going back, just once, to face her, to burn the cabin like the hunter said. But the thought of those trees, that fog, the old man's melting face, it was too much. I wasn't a climber anymore, wasn't brave. Blackthorn had taken that, along with my peace. I kept the lockbox under my bed, checked it daily, the keys. Wait a reminder of what I'd survived, what I'd lost. Nate's voice was faint now, a memory. You tried, Lucas, but trying wasn't enough, not for him. Not for Clara or Michael or the others. Some days I'd stare out my window, the city, lights flickering like the cabin's lamps, and feel her closer, a chill in the air, a whisper of my name. I'd check the lockbox, the journal untouched, the key still there. Its rust flaking, but its glow stronger, like it was calling. I didn't answer, didn't dare, but I knew she was waiting, patient, endless. Blackthorn wasn't just a friend, was her, and I'd walked into her heart, left a piece of myself behind. I'd never climb again, never trust the silence, never forget the names or the keys. Wait, I live with it now, the hum, the whispers, the dreams. I'm not the guy who laughed at ghost stories, who chased peaks to outrun his past. I'm the guy who checks his locks, who flinches at shadows, who knows the forest is still out there, waiting. Ilara's voice is my shadow, her promise my truth. You'll come back. I don't want to believe it, but some nights, when the city's too quiet, I feel Blackthorn's pull, a tug in my chest, a call I can't ignore forever. Hey everyone, that's the end of Lucas's story. What would you have done in that cabin state to fight or run like him? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more creepy tales. If you've got your own spooky story, share it below. We love hearing them. Stay safe out there, and maybe steer clear of Blackthorn Forest. Stay spooky.